Hello, everyone. With immense pleasure, I welcome our guest for today in our industry expert series, Mr. Dipankar Ghosh. Mr. Dipankar is the founder, CEO of Digi2O, a tech organization offering solutions to reduce losses in manufacturing organizations and help the plant managers with key insights to run their operations with efficiency and effectively. Mr. Dipankar has over 35 plus years of experience in manufacturing, consulting, and software solutions fields, working with companies such as BHEL, HP, and Pfizer, to name a few. Welcome, sir.
Thanks very much for having me, Shivaranjani, here. And thanks very much to the BSLS, the Business School of Logistics and Shipping. And thanks also very much for accepting my request to do it on a Sunday. And immensely, grateful for that. And yes, go ahead. I'm ready for a freewheeling chat for whatever you want to ask me.
My absolute pleasure, sir. And indeed, I am looking forward to hearing your insights with your experience. So, sir, to get started, I would really like to know what's your life story? How have the 35 years been?
Okay, it's not been 35 years. It's actually my life story starts in at least about 20 years earlier to that.
Right.
It's a very interesting question. I'm an introvert, and I thought that perhaps such a question, who would be bothered to know about my life story? So, however, I think there's a point there, and everybody has something of substance to say, and it should be told. So I did my schooling in a boarding school, and this lasted for about 10 years, and it was okay academically, without much effort from my side. And that was a school which gives me the foundation of what I am today. It helped me to think for myself, be open to ideas and thoughts. Apart from academics, we were very strong in sports. I used to play games, and I was a long distance runner. I used to run long and hard, and running long distance helped me to learn about grit and not giving up even when we are experiencing pain. And this kind of thing, continued in my university days as well. And after my university, I joined PSU and worked there for about 7-8 years. Got bored with it because of the fact that there were challenges were less and things were more mundane and regular. And I decided to take a bit of a risk. And this was the early 90s when POC jobs were quite coveted.
Yes.
And I left to join an organization which was in the private sector. And believe me, those 7-8 years I spent there helped me to grow as a person and grow in my career as well. So I thought that it was a good move. After that, I quit that organization. I spent another 5-7 years in manufacturing before I decided to take another big risk, which is to jump from manufacturing to IT. And so it was rather difficult, and that's when I traveled to Chennai from the north. And I hardly had any exposure to software programming, and so I learned the ropes and worked for a few multinational software companies for about a decade before I started my own company in 2008 in software solutions. It still runs in Chennai. And this software solutions company provides bespoke software to small and medium enterprises, both in India and in the US. We have several US clients as well. And then in the year 2017, I decided to start up all again, and I started Digi2O, which is an industrial IoT company. And this is a happy, convergence of my experience in manufacturing and IT, I should say, and I really love it. So if we want to sum up my, in a sense, my life story, it's all about, having been taking a bit of risk and working hard and learning the ropes as I went along and built something up from the scratch. and then move to something new again. So that really has been, and I must say that, I have been blessed with a lot of support from a lot of people, and I must thank them, and I can't thank them enough. I'm very grateful to them, my parents, my teachers, my senior colleagues from whom I learned a lot, and from my junior colleagues as well as last but not the least, my better half as well.
Wow.
And and that's I believe has been my life until now.
Oh, so yours truly is a story where passion meets profession. I mean, I could also see from your bio, wherein you had shared you are a mechanical engineering graduate, along with a diploma in statistical process control and operations research. And the outcome is Digi 2.0 with all your experience as well. So moving on, now that you've spent almost 30 plus years in the tech space, what are some of the dynamics that has changed over the years, sir?
Well, actually, a lot has changed. When we started in the early 80s, life was more laid back, more cool, and there was not this frenetic space in terms of technology. Technology changes were not coming as fast and furious as it is coming today. Just to give you a perspective, the automobile took about 60 years to have 50 million users.
Right.
The mobile phone took about 12 years, and Twitter took only 2 years. So you can see the amount of, the speed of change that has been happening. In our time, in those days, we used to have communication through landline phone, if we had one. Otherwise, we used to write letters.
Yes.
So, and I'm talking about 80s and even early 90s, and now you see that you hardly even use emails. Right. When you can have things like Telegram and WhatsApp to share your communication, even business communication. So that's the kind of change has happened. And I believe that some form of Moore's law applies to technology in general. So as we go along, every 2 years, at the very least, we have double the power in our hands.
Right, right.
And this is a very powerful phenomenon, I believe. It can be very useful and very exciting. At the same time, it can be very scary. Useful and exciting because I believe that all of these technologies, the way it is progressing as fast as we see today, it is going to result in a lot of problems being solved, complex problems being solved faster for humanity. And the terrifying thing, scary thing about it is that, it will lead to a lot of pain and stress for people who cannot adapt. So that's an area of concern. And of course, technology is only a tool, as you realize. And therefore, if you, can do good things doubly well, you can do bad things also doubly well as well. Oh. So that's the kind of changes we see nowadays in industry.
Sure, sir. Sir, my next question is in line to what you have just told us. We have seen technology has had its impact across, not only, so to speak, about industries, but into our personal lives as well. So, sir, I would really like you to share some key insights about what are some of the interesting things that we can see in the future.
A lot of things will change. Even in the coming decade, you will see technology being applied to several serious problems that we face today. One is, for instance, water and energy conservation. We will see a lot of changes in the area of energy as we move from fossil fuels to renewables. And this will have a huge impact in the way we run our industries, in the way we run our housing, for instance, in the way we run our cities. And another major one is mobility. Right. Huge change is is on the way as we move from fossil fuels to renewable sources of energy. Also, I feel that there will be a lot of more money and research poured in and research happening in areas of energy, other alternative energy sources, such as energy from the oceans, for instance, or energy from the atmosphere. Can we have bring electricity from the atmosphere and harness that energy for our daily lives? These are certain things that will be, researched more in the area of energy. Water is a serious concern. Scarcity of water is a serious concern, and we will see that one of the issues, a couple of issues with regard to that is how do we reduce the use of water, and on one hand, and also at the same time, how do we recycle and reuse water? So these are areas where technology will definitely be be applied to get solutions that are affordable and easily usable for the vast majority, not only for industries but also the common people. How do we produce enough food to ensure that people do not go hungry? There will be 9 billion people in the world, or more than 9 billion people in the world in 2050. So how do we produce enough food for them? And not only produce food for them, but also ensure that everybody, the food is actually reaching, their homes and their stomachs. And that's a major problem to solve as well. So these are some of the areas I feel that mobility is another area that will be very strongly impacted by technology. We will see more interest towards use of multimodal transportation. I've already talked about reduction of fossil fuel, which means that petrol and diesel will be used less in our automobiles and will be more electric vehicles that we will use. And when I say multimodal transportation, it is like, for instance, if I want to go to my place of work, I should be able to use my bicycle, which is a very efficient and, environment-friendly use of transport, to the nearest electrical bus station or electrical train station. And from there, I can go to work. All of this will reduce the per capita consumption of energy in terms of travel. So these are some of the major changes I see that is going to happen due to technology in the coming decade. Of course, there are other areas, important areas such as education and healthcare, and we know that a lot of work is being done in those areas as well.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much for actually giving us such deep insights and being specific to the areas which will have an impact and what we can look forward to. Now, sir, since we come from a logistics and a supply chain background, I would like you to tell us what are some of the latest technologies that are being used specific to enhance the efficiency in logistics and supply chain operations?
Good question. Yeah, logistics and supply chain is a very important part in the economy. For instance, in agriculture and food, we talk about from farm to fork, right? And this farm to fork will not happen without, the existence of efficient and effective logistics and supply chain industry. So that's how it is as important as that. It's all about moving, things from one place to another, point A to point B, as efficiently and effectively as possible, and storing them well. So this is the primary job of the logistics and supply chain industry, as I understand. And there are a few technologies that are already being utilized and will be utilized more in an advanced fashion, such as, for instance, artificial intelligence will help, make transportation more intelligent. It will help you to do demand and route planning much better. We will see a lot of last mile delivery issues resolved through the use of drones and robots as we go along. So similarly, augmented intelligence, such as, augmented intelligence means, combination of human intelligence with artificial intelligence, will where we use the experience and the knowledge of the people in the industry. That will be combined with artificial intelligence to help the logistics workers to become more effective and efficient and take faster and better decisions and also reduce the errors that may happen because of lack of proper and quick information. So artificial and augmented intelligence is going to play a big role. One very important factor in this area will be, real-time supply chain visibility. Now, we do have supply chain visibility now, but it will become more and more real-time. So things like location data, traceability technologies, and for instance, knowing the traffic pattern or the weather conditions, all of these will be fed from various systems, information technology systems, into the logistics information systems, which will help the people who work in the industry and also the customer, the end customer, which is the most important stakeholder in this entire thing, to have a better 360-degree view of the entire supply chain. And that is going to have a huge impact in terms of reducing costs and making logistics more effective and efficient. And then there will be technologies such as digital twins, for instance, where you will be able to model the real life situation, real life scenarios, and come up with a better understanding and forecasting of demands and routing and transportation and things like that. Also, digital twins will help, like they help in the, in factory settings, in helping you to manage your layouts, design your layouts better in warehouses, for instance. And also, if you are going to introduce new equipment in your logistics chain, you will be able to model and find out how good they will be when you actually implement them. So all of this will bring a lot of benefits in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, as productivity, and reduction in costs.
Oh, absolutely great to know this. You've actually once again given us, an overview about the impact from each aspect that technology is going to have on logistics per se. Like you very crisply pointed out, a lot of it depends on where is our cargo. So to know where exactly the location is, the traffic and the route optimization, another aspect which has a greater impact on the entire supply chain. So thank you so much once again.
In fact, IoT will play an important role as well.
Yes.
IoT and sensors and cloud technologies coming together will help people to understand, track containers, track shipments,
yes,
in a more accurate way, and reduce delivery time and also reduce errors in deliveries.
Sure, sir. So we can foresee that all these will make logistics and supply chain, our lives a little more easier by complementing us with the real-time data. Absolutely. And helping manage better ops. So now my next question to you is, from a technology solutions provider, what are some of the key challenges you face while interacting with your clients in order to convince them how your technology will support, or what are some of the key challenges that you come across, sir?
One of the kind of technologies that we are talking about are quite new, and in the past decade or so, they have been proven to be working well. They are not new in the sense that some of these have been under development the last 30 years. But what has happened is that in the last 10 to 15 years, they have gained traction just because people have started realizing their benefits. But since they are new, there's a lack of knowledge in the industry, and therefore a kind of it appears that since there's a lack of knowledge, people have to be educated about how they could get benefited by this, because applying this technology means investing, and people are not ready to invest quickly unless they know that they have proven. So we are in a stage where I think people are gradually realizing that they must learn about this, gain knowledge about this, to understand what is the ROI, the return on investment of such efforts. And so that has started happening. But from our point of view, our job number one job is to educate our potential clients, our customers, to understand what these technologies can do for them, and hence how they can be benefited, and how quick the payback period will be, what will be the return on investment. These are certain things that we have to, in the initial stages, be able to get across to into the client's mind as well. So that's number one. Number two, of course, is once we get into this position where a client is ready to, a customer is ready to invest, understanding what the requirements are. Because again, things are new. Sometimes the customers will be required to be hand-holded in order to for them to understand as to exactly what they would need. And based on that, once we convince them, we will have to then use them, lead them towards the solutions. But leading them towards the solutions is not enough. Of course, we have talked about the customer, investing, which means that there is some kind of a buy-in from the top management. But there has to be buy-in from other stakeholders, and that sometimes acts as a roadblock. Other stakeholders being specifically the user department. The frontline worker has to sometimes use, most of these technologies will have to be used, and the frontline worker also gets impacted by these. For instance, accountability becomes, transparency becomes, and accountability becomes very high, priority for the companies when they apply these. And sometimes the frontline workers think that, their privacy is being impacted. They are not, they are fearful of these technologies, thinking that their job will be, on the block, or because of higher transparency and accountability, whether their inefficiencies will be discovered. So these are some of the challenges which are on the human side of things, as you can really understand, have to be tackled by both us as well as the company's management. So these are, I think, some of the key challenges that when we go with our such technologies to clients, these are some of the key challenges that we find. Another important challenge is, suppose, as I talked about knowledge, there has to be a certain amount of skill sets available within the organization. Some of these organizations are quite old in the sense that they have very senior people who are not digitally savvy, right? But however, they have a lot of experience. So for these organizations, they must invest in younger people who are more digitally savvy. But again, they have to ensure the cultural fit between the young and the old, so that the experience and the expertise of the old can be transferred to the the younger people, and the digital savviness of the young can be transferred to the older people. So these are some of the challenges even the company will have to tackle.
Sure, sir. Sure. And sir, my last question is, today, the next big thing in technology is all about AI, machine learning, IoT, etc. So I would like you to tell us, what is the overall impact of these latest technologies for an organization, sir?
Yeah, look, technology likes acronyms and jargons, and many times I also don't understand these, frankly speaking. But let me start with IoT, not because we are an IoT company, but because of the fact that IoT lays the foundation of much of the other technologies. So, to understand IoT very clearly, it's actually very simple. We understand in the last 4 to 5 decades how computerization has improved our effectiveness and efficiency and productivity, because it helps us to have information, ready-made information in our hand, based on which we can make decisions, right? So this is a given. This is something that we all understand. But one important factor about computerization is the way we have done until now, which is pure IT. Is that some human intervention is required. So somebody has to enter data, and some good accurate data, into the computer so that the computer can give the relevant information. And human intervention can be error prone. That's one thing. And also, it can also be delayed in the sense that a human being cannot, for instance, a shop floor supervisor, at the end of the shift, he will sit down and fill in data into the computer as an example, right? But what had happened in the shift you cannot get real time. It is only at the end of the shift. Now, I have worked in on shop floor, so I know that sometimes the supervisor gets so caught up with the emergencies and exigencies that he doesn't have the time to fill in the data, right? So all the data that goes into the computer is normally delayed because of this, or sometimes are error prone, and they are not immediately available for decision making. So what happens is that in case of IoT, what happens? It is a technology which takes care of collecting the data, and it collects the data directly from the machines, or directly from the products, or directly from some tool or equipment, and then it instantaneously transfers the data to the database, so that instantaneously you are able to get the benefit of the data, and there is no chance of error, or very little chance of error, and very little delays that happen. So this is what IoT is all about. You add the sensor technology with the internet communication technology and the database and the software technology all together to give you instantaneous information, which simple IT could not give because of the reasons I just talked about, because of delays. And so that's IoT. Now, what happens when the data is there and a large amount of data is collected in a database? You are able to mine those data and see, software can be used to detect patterns within the data and get deeper knowledge about the entire process through the data. And there are software that will be able to, after getting the deeper knowledge, will be able to give you recommendations or decisions much faster than what a human being will be able to do with the data that he sees on his screen. And this is where the role of artificial intelligence comes in, because all of these technologies, the kind of algorithms, the computer algorithms that are used over the data, and the models that are used, they allow you to, allow the computer to make human-like interpretation of the data through artificial intelligence in order to give you the information that you need in a faster and a more accurate way. And artificial intelligence also can help you to automate things as well, automate decision making as well. For instance, all of this can help you to start and stop a machine if required, as an example. So that's where artificial intelligence comes in. Then you talked about virtual reality. Virtual reality of VR is all about, getting an immersive experience of something, of a situation or of a location, by going nowhere, but sitting at your own place, wherever you are. So for instance, if you want to take a tour of a city, or take a tour of your dream house, as an example, you can sit at wherever you are at this point in time, wear those glasses, and be able to actually go around 360 degrees throughout the city or throughout your dream house, open and shut doors, for instance, and see what is inside. Everything you can do just by sitting at one place. So it is exactly what it says. It is virtual reality. The reality is not there at the where you are sitting, but wearing those glasses, you are able to see what is possible and what is there in that house, for instance, or in that city. So that is what virtual reality is all about. Virtual reality is playing a big role, and will play a big role in things like sales, where people will not go to a showroom to see things. And training, for instance, training is a big area where virtual reality will play a big role. Training in medicine, in healthcare, in military operations, for instance, where you do not really need to be in the field to experience those. You can experience sitting there wearing glasses. Augmented reality is a reality which is augmented or enhanced. Essentially, it means that the reality is there. So you point your camera, for instance, your cell phone camera, and use an app, for instance, on the reality, the product, for instance. Say, for example, there's a piece of art, and you point your app to the piece of art. It will, on your screen, it will pop up information with regard to the artist, the the year of date of painting, etc. When the artistic work was created, the price if it is required. So those are the things that pop up on your screen where you point something and something on a real object. This is also very useful. It's extremely useful in the plant setting or the factory setting, because, for instance, if you point your camera and the app towards for instance, a machine, it will be able to give you a temperature of a fluid, for instance, or the pressure of the fluid. It will pop up on your screen and based on the real-time data. So it's actually based on real-time data. So that's augmented reality. And there's something called mixed reality, which is a combination of both VR and AR. But while we talk about so many realities, we should not lose sight of one important reality, which is HR, which is human reality.
Right.
So if you look at what is the use of all of these technologies if the human reality is not changed for the better. So even now, about 10% of the world goes hungry to bed every day. There are many countries where only 50% of people know how to read and write. So I'm hopeful that these kind of technologies will solve these big problems, and because they have the power to solve these problems. All we have to do is to apply our minds and thoughts to solve these kind of problems.
Very beautifully said, sir. Thank you so much for sharing such great insights. And on behalf of Business School of Logistics and Shipping, I would like to thank you once again for having taken time out from your busy schedule and also to agree to be a part of our industry expert series and sharing such valuable insights. I'm sure a lot from the tech space is to come in the near future, and we are all absolutely looking forward to it, sir.
Thanks very much for having me. It was really a pleasure talking to you, Ranjini. All the best to you and BSLS.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.